Welcome to my channel, a list that brings your story about the love of a mafia boss. Now let's listen.
The fluorescent lights hummed above me like dying insects, casting a sickly yellow glow across the diner's cracked linoleum floor. My feet ached, a deep, throbbing pain that had become so familiar I barely noticed it anymore. 13 hours. 13 hours of carrying trays, forcing smiles, pretending the leering comments and single-dollar tips didn't chip away at whatever dignity I had left. I wiped down table 7 for the third time, even though it was already clean. Anything to look busy. Anything to avoid Marcus's eyes from across the room. The night manager had been watching me lately, his gaze lingering too long, his fingers brushing mine when he handed me orders. I needed this job. I couldn't afford to lose it. The diner smelled of burnt coffee and fryer grease, a scent that had seeped so deep into my clothes, my hair, my skin, that I wondered if I'd ever smell like anything else. Outside, rain hammered against the windows, turning the neon signs across the street into bleeding watercolors of red and blue. "Sweetheart, can we get some service here or what?" I turned, my customer service smile already in place, and felt my breath catch. The corner booth, the one we usually reserved for late-night cops looking for free coffee, was occupied. Not by cops. By something else entirely. 3 men sat in the shadows, but my eyes fixed on the one in the center. He wore black. Expensive black. The kind of tailored suit that cost more than my annual rent. Even in the diner's harsh lighting, the fabric seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. His shirt was crisp white, open at the collar, revealing a glimpse of olive skin and the edge of what looked like a scar, but it was his presence that hit me first. A weight in the air, a crackling electricity that made every instinct I possessed scream danger. I approached slowly, clutching my notepad like a shield. The 2 men flanking him were clearly security. One had a neck like a tree trunk and dead eyes that scanned the diner in methodical sweeps. The other was leaner but no less menacing, his hand resting casually near his waist where I could see the outline of something that definitely wasn't a phone. "Good evening," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "What can I get you?" The man in the center lifted his gaze, and I forgot how to breathe. His eyes were dark, so dark they were almost black, and they held an intensity that felt like being pinned beneath a microscope. Sharp jawline, the shadow of stubble, and a mouth that curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. There was a cruelty there, barely leashed but also something else. Curiosity, maybe, or amusement. "Coffee," he said. His voice was low, accented. Italian, I thought, and it resonated in my chest like a plucked string. "Black." The man to his right ordered the same. The tree trunk one just grunted. I scribbled it down, my hand trembling slightly. "Anything else?" "Your accent," he said, those black eyes never leaving my face. "Where are you from?" My stomach tightened. I'd learned long ago that personal questions from customers rarely ended well, but something about the way he asked, direct, commanding, expecting an answer, made lying feel impossible. "Here," I said. "I was born here. But your parents?" My mother was Russian. I never knew him. Why was I telling him this? I pressed my lips together, angry at myself. He tilted his head, studying me like I was a puzzle. "Russian. Interesting. You speak it?" "Yes." "What else?" I blinked. "Excuse me? What other languages do you speak?" His tone wasn't conversational. It was an interrogation disguised as small talk. I should have lied, should have shrugged and walked away, but exhaustion had worn down my defenses, and something in his gaze demanded truth. "9, I said quietly. The diner seemed to stop. Even the hum of the fluorescent lights paused. The man's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind his eyes, surprise, quickly masked. 9 languages, he repeated, his voice soft but edged with something I couldn't identify. Then he laughed. A short, sharp sound that held no humor. A waitress in a place like this speaks 9 languages. Heat flooded my cheeks. Shame, anger, and something else I couldn't name. "Yes," I said, lifting my chin. "Russian, English, Spanish, Italian, French, German, Portuguese, Arabic, and Mandarin. Is there anything else you need, or should I get your coffee?" The words came out sharper than I intended. Professional suicide, probably. but I was too tired to care. His laugh died. The amusement in his eyes transformed into something predatory, something that made my pulse spike. He leaned back against the booth, his gaze traveling over me slowly. Not sexually, but analytically, like he was reassessing everything. "Dmitri," he said, switching to flawless Russian. "Check the kitchen. Make sure we're alone." The tree trunk man rose without a word and disappeared through the double doors. My heart hammered against my ribs. "You understand me?" he continued in Russian, a statement, not a question. "Yes." My throat felt dry. He switched to Italian. "And this?" Then Mandarin. "See." A question about the weather. I answered in Mandarin, my accent Beijing standard. His eyes narrowed. "Who are you?" "Just a waitress." My hands were shaking now. I clasped them behind my back. "No." He leaned forward, elbows on the table, and the movement was graceful and controlled. Everything about him was controlled. Waitresses don't speak 9 languages fluently. Waitresses don't have the discipline required for that level of linguistic mastery. So I'll ask you again, who are you? "Someone who needed to eat," I snapped, my fear crystallizing into defensiveness. "Someone whose mother dragged her across 6 countries chasing work that never lasted. Someone who learned languages because it was that or starve. Is that what you want to hear?" Silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. I'd done it now, yelled at a customer. Marcus would fire me before the night ended. But the man didn't look angry. He looked fascinated. "What's your name?" he asked, back in English now. "Elena." "Elena." He rolled the syllables on his tongue like he was tasting wine. "Beautiful. Russian for light." "I know what my name means. Of course you do." That not-quite smile returned. "You're educated. Wasted here. I don't need your pity." "Good. I'm not offering any." He reached into his jacket, the security guard tensed, and pulled out a phone. Black, sleek, with a logo I didn't recognize. "I have a proposition for you, Elena." Every alarm bell in my head started ringing. "I'm not interested. You haven't heard it yet. I don't need to. Men like you don't make propositions to women like me unless men like me." His voice dropped to something dangerous. "What do you think I am?" I met his gaze, my heart in my throat. Dangerous. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then he smiled, a real smile this time, and it transformed his face from dangerous to devastating. "Smart girl," he murmured. "Yes, I'm dangerous. But I'm also someone who recognizes value when I see it. And you, Elena, who speaks 9 languages and works in a dying diner, are valuable. I'm not for sale. Everyone is for sale." He said it matter-of-factly, without judgment. "It's just a question of price, but I'm not trying to buy you. I'm offering you employment." "Doing what?" "Translation. Interpretation. Nothing illegal." The way he said it made me certain everything he did was illegal. Good pay. Better than this. I should have said no. Should have walked away. But rent was due in 3 days, and I had $17 in my bank account. "How much?" His smile widened. $5,000 a week. To start. The number hit me like a physical blow. 5,000. A week. That was more than I made in 3 months here. "Why?" I whispered. "Why me?" "Because you're invisible," he said simply. "People look at you, a waitress, exhausted, poor, and they see nothing. No threat. They talk freely around you, but you're not nothing, Elena. You're exceptional, and I collect exceptional things." The way he said it, collect, sent ice down my spine. Dmitri returned, nodding to his boss. All clear. The man stood, and I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and moved with the confidence of someone who'd never been told no. "Think about it," he said, pulling out a card and setting it on the table, black, with a single phone number embossed in silver. "Call me when you're ready to stop wasting your potential." He turned to leave, his guards flanking him, when I found my voice. "I don't even know your name." He paused, glancing back over his shoulder. In the diner's dying light, with rain streaking the windows behind him, he looked like something from a nightmare. or a dream. Dante, he said. Dante Caruso. The name meant nothing to me, but the way Dimitri's hand went immediately to his weapon, the way every instinct screamed at me to run, told me everything I needed to know. I just caught the attention of someone I should have avoided at all costs. They left, disappearing into a black SUV with tinted windows that purred like a predator. Through the window, I watched it glide away into the rain-soaked night, and I realized I was still holding the card. The weight of it felt heavier than paper should. Marcus appeared at my shoulder. Who were they? Just customers. I shoved the card into my apron pocket. They didn't order food, or pay for the coffee. I'll cover it. He stared at me, suspicion naked on his face, but said nothing. The rest of my shift passed in a blur. I went through the motions, refilling coffee, taking orders, pretending everything was normal, but my hand kept drifting to my pocket, to that card, feeling its edges through the fabric. 5,000 a week. It was a trap. It had to be. Men like Dante Caruso didn't offer salvation. They offered pretty cages, but as I walked home through streets slick with rain, past the condemned building where I rented a room that barely qualified as livable, past the addicts and the working girls and the ghosts of people who'd given up, I felt the card burning against my hip like a promise, or a curse. I climbed the 4 flights of stairs to my room. The elevator had been broken for months, and unlocked the 3 deadbolts I'd installed myself. Inside, the space was barely 10 by 10. A mattress on the floor, a hot plate, a mini fridge that buzzed incessantly. The bathroom was shared with 5 other tenants, and the walls were so thin I could hear every argument, every cry, every desperate transaction. This was my life. This was all I had. I pulled out the card and stared at it under the single bare bulb. Dante Caruso. I should throw it away. Should forget this ever happened. Instead, I found myself reaching for my phone, a cracked ancient thing that barely held a charge, and typing the name into a search engine. The results made my blood run cold. Dante Caruso, head of the Caruso crime family. Suspected involvement in everything from racketeering to arms dealing, multiple arrests, 0 convictions. Known for his ruthlessness and his uncanny ability to evade justice. A mafia boss. I'd been propositioned by a mafia boss. I dropped the phone like it had burned me, my hands shaking. This was insane. I couldn't. I wouldn't. My stomach growled, sharp and painful. I hadn't eaten since the stale bagel I'd grabbed 14 hours ago. Couldn't afford to. 5,000 a week. I looked around my room, at the water stain spreading across the ceiling, at the cockroach crawling lazily across the wall, at my reflection in the cracked mirror, gaunt, exhausted, disappearing. What did I have to lose? Everything, a small voice whispered. Your life, your soul, your freedom. But what freedom did I have now? What life was this? I picked up the phone and stared at the card for a long moment. Then, before I could talk myself out of it, I saved the number. Not to call. Not yet. Just to have. Just in case. I fell asleep that night with the card clutched in my hand and dreamed of black eyes and promises that tasted like poison and honey. When I woke the next morning, everything had changed. Someone had slipped an envelope under my door. My hands trembled as I picked up the envelope. It was thick, cream-colored, expensive. The kind of paper that whispered wealth. No name, no address, just the weight of it in my hands and the certainty settling in my gut like lead. I knew who it was from. Inside, I found cash. Crisp $100 bills still smelling of ink. I counted them twice, my breath catching. $5,000. Exactly. And a note, written in elegant script. Consider this in advance. You start tonight. A car will pick you up at 8 p.m. Wear something appropriate. D. My first instinct was anger. How dare he? How dare he assume I'd accept, that I could be bought, that... I looked around my room again, at the reality of my life. The anger died as quickly as it flared, leaving only exhaustion and a terrible, creeping sense of inevitability. I had 2 choices: return the money and continue drowning slowly in this existence, or take the lifeline offered by a man who collected people like art. I counted the bills again. $5,000, 3 months of rent, food, medicine for the respiratory infection I'd been ignoring because I couldn't afford a doctor. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "The choice is yours, Elena. But choose quickly. Opportunity doesn't wait. How did he have my number? I'd never given it to him. Of course he had it. Men like Dante Caruso probably knew everything about me already. My address, my work history, my debts. The thought should have terrified me. It did terrify me. But it also spoke to something else. His interest was real. Calculated, yes, but real. I spent the day in a haze, moving through familiar motions that suddenly felt alien. I called in sick to the diner, the first time in 2 years, and Marcus's irritation crackled through the phone line. I didn't care. If tonight went the way I thought it would, I'd never set foot in that place again. The afternoon stretched endlessly. I used some of the cash to buy something appropriate. A simple black dress from a thrift store. Elegant, but not flashy. Heels that pinched, but made my legs look longer. I showered in the communal bathroom, scrubbing away the permanent scent of grease and desperation. When I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. My dark hair, usually pulled back in a messy bun, fell in waves around my face. I'd used the last of my makeup to hide the shadows under my eyes. The dress hugged curves I'd forgotten I had. For the first time in years, I looked like something other than a ghost, but my eyes gave me away. Gray-green and haunted, they held the truth. I was walking into a trap, and I knew it. At exactly 8 p.m., a black Mercedes pulled up outside my building. Not the SUV from last night. This was sleeker, more refined, with windows tinted so dark they looked like obsidian. The driver who emerged wore a dark suit and an earpiece. He opened the back door without a word, his face professionally blank. I hesitated on the curb, my heart hammering. This was it, the moment of no return. What did I have to lose? I slid into the back seat, and the door closed behind me with a sound like a vault ceiling. The interior smelled of leather and something else. Cologne, expensive and subtle, with notes of cedar and something darker. The seats were butter soft, and classical music played softly from hidden speakers. Everything about the car spoke of wealth so profound it didn't need to announce itself. We drove in silence through the city. I watched my neighborhood disappear. The crumbling buildings, the street corners where I knew which dealers worked, which shifts, the bodega where I bought expired food at discount. We crossed into a different world, tree-lined streets, historic brownstones, windows glowing with warm light, offering glimpses of lives I'd only ever imagined. The car finally stopped in front of a restaurant I'd heard of, but never dreamed of entering, Vincenzo's. The kind of place where reservations required a 6-month wait and a last name that mattered. The driver opened my door. He's waiting inside, table at the back. I stepped out on shaking legs, the cool evening air raising goosebumps on my exposed skin. The restaurant's facade was understated elegance, a simple sign, warm light spilling from floor-to-ceiling windows, the murmur of sophisticated conversation. A maitre d' materialized as I approached. "Miss Elena?" He knew my name. Of course he did. "This way, please." He led me through the restaurant, and I felt every eye turn toward me. Not hostile, just curious. I didn't belong here, and everyone knew it. But I lifted my chin and followed, my heels clicking against marble floors. The back of the restaurant opened into a private room, separated by frosted glass, and there he was. Dante stood as I entered, and the gesture was so unexpectedly courteous it caught me off guard. He wore another black suit, this one even more impeccable than last night's, with a midnight blue tie that made his dark eyes seem even more penetrating. Elena. My name on his lips sounded like a caress and a claim. "You came." "You didn't give me much choice. There's always a choice." He gestured to the chair across from him. "Sit." It wasn't a request. I sat, hyper-aware of his gaze tracking my every movement. The table was set with crystal and china, a bottle of wine already breathing, and the space felt simultaneously intimate and suffocating. "You look beautiful," he said, and there was no flattery in his tone, just observation. "You said to wear something appropriate." "I did." He poured wine into my glass, the movement fluid and practiced. "And you followed instructions." "Good." The word rankled. "I'm not a dog." His lips curved. No, you're much more interesting than a dog. He raised his glass. To new beginnings. I didn't touch mine. Why am I here? To discuss your employment. You already decided I'd accept. You sent the money. An advance, he corrected. You're free to return it and leave. The driver will take you home and you'll never hear from me again. He leaned back, studying me over the rim of his glass. But you won't. Because you're smart enough to recognize opportunity and desperate enough to take risks. The brutal honesty stung. You don't know anything about me, don't I? He set down his glass and pulled out a folder from beside his chair, laying it on the table between us. Elena Volkov, 26 years old. Mother, Natasha Volkov, deceased 3 years ago from pneumonia. Father, unknown. You've lived in 12 different cities across 6 countries. No formal education past age 16, but you taught yourself 9 languages through immersion, necessity, and what I suspect is a photographic memory. You've worked 23 different jobs in the past decade, never staying anywhere longer than 8 months. Current debts, $43,000, mostly medical bills from your mother's final illness. You work 70-hour weeks at a diner that pays minimum wage, and you haven't had a full meal in 4 days. Each word landed like a blow. He knew everything. Every humiliating detail of my failure to build anything resembling a life. How? My voice cracked. I'm thorough. He closed the folder. I don't collect broken things, Elena. I collect diamonds buried in dirt, and you, fascinating girl, are exactly that. I'm not a thing to be collected, no. His gaze intensified, and I felt pinned. You're a person. A brilliant, wasted person who's been invisible for so long you've forgotten you're exceptional. I'm offering to change that by making me work for a criminal. He didn't flinch. Yes. The blunt admission was almost worse than a lie would have been. What exactly would I be doing? Translation and interpretation, as I said. I conduct business internationally. I need someone fluent in multiple languages who can be trusted with confidential information. He paused. Someone who has everything to lose and understands the value of loyalty. You mean someone you can control? I mean someone who understands that our arrangement is mutually beneficial and terminable only by death or my permission. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. You're threatening me. I'm being honest. He leaned forward, and the movement brought him into my space, his scent wrapping around me. You want pretty lies? Go back to the diner. You want the truth? The world isn't kind to women like you, Elena. Women with no protection, no resources, no power. You're prey. I'm offering to make you something else. What? Mine. The word hung between us, heavy with implication. I won't sleep with you, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I didn't ask you to. His eyes glittered with amusement. Though, if you change your mind, I won't object. But that's not what this is about. I need your skills, not your body. Your mind, not your compliance. You'll work for me. You'll be compensated generously, and you'll be under my protection. In return, you'll be loyal, discreet, and available when I need you. And if I want to leave, you won't. The certainty in his voice chilled me. You can't know that. I can. Because within a month you'll realize what I already know. You were made for this. For power, for danger, for a life that demands everything you are. The diner was killing you slowly. I'm offering you resurrection. He was insane, arrogant, dangerous, and he was right. I could feel it. The terrible rightness of his words. The part of me that had always been too sharp, too observant, too hungry for more than survival. That part recognized what he was offering. I need guarantees, I said. Written contracts, protection. He smiled, genuine this time. Smart. Yes, my lawyer will draw up documents, non-disclosure agreements, employment terms, severance clauses. You'll be protected legally as much as I can offer. But understand this, Elena, the real protection comes from me. My name, my reputation. Anyone who touches what's mine answers to me. I'm not yours. Not yet. He stood, buttoning his jacket. But you will be. The question is only how long you'll fight the inevitable. A waiter appeared with dishes I hadn't ordered, food that smelled divine and probably cost more than my monthly rent. Dante gestured for me to eat, and despite everything, my traitorous stomach won. The meal was exquisite, course after course of perfectly prepared food, each bite a reminder of everything I'd been denying myself. Dante watched me eat, with something like satisfaction, sipping his wine but barely touching his own plate. "Why aren't you eating?" I asked between courses. "I already had dinner. This is for you." He tilted his head. "When did you last eat a real meal?" I couldn't remember. "It doesn't matter." "It does to me. You'll eat properly from now on. You'll sleep in a real bed, in a safe place. You'll have health care, a phone that works, clothes that fit. These are non-negotiable terms of your employment. Why do you care? Because you're valuable to me, and I take care of my investments." The word should have insulted me, but his tone was almost protective. "You start tomorrow, 7 a.m. The driver will collect you. Tomorrow, I need time." "Time for what? To talk yourself out of the best decision you'll ever make?" He stood, adjusting his cufflinks. "The car will take you home. Pack whatever you want to keep. You won't be going back to that room. Where will I be staying? I have a property. Secure, comfortable. You'll have your own space, your privacy, but you'll be close enough for me to access when needed." The phrasing, "for me to access," made my pulse spike. "And if I refuse?" He moved around the table, stopping beside my chair. Up close, he was overwhelming. Height, presence, the barely contained power that radiated from him like heat. He reached down and tilted my chin up with one finger, forcing me to meet his eyes. "You won't refuse," he said softly. "Because you're already mine, Elena. You just haven't accepted it yet." Then he was gone, leaving me alone with the remains of the feast and the card he'd left on the table. Not the one from last night, a new one, with an address and a time. 7 a.m. tomorrow, my new life. I sat there for a long time, finishing the wine, trying to process what I'd just agreed to. The restaurant staff moved around me with practiced invisibility, clearing plates, refilling my glass, never quite meeting my eyes. I'd sold myself. That's what I'd done. But as the driver took me home through streets that suddenly looked foreign, as I climbed those stairs for what might be the last time, as I looked around the room that had been my prison for 2 years, I felt something unexpected, relief. And underneath it, buried so deep I almost didn't recognize it, excitement. I packed quickly. I didn't own much. Clothes that barely fit, a few books in different languages, my mother's necklace, the essentials of a life lived in transit, ready to run at any moment. But I wouldn't be running anymore. I'd be walking straight into the fire. At 3 a.m., unable to sleep, I finally Googled Dante Caruso more thoroughly. The articles painted a picture of a man who was untouchable, feared, and absolutely ruthless. There were rumors of disappeared enemies, of territorial wars, of violence so calculated it bordered on artistry, and I'd just agreed to belong to him. The Mercedes arrived at exactly 6:45 a.m. I was already waiting on the curb, my pathetic collection of belongings in 2 garbage bags, all I owned in the world reduced to something you'd leave out for trash collection. A different driver this time, younger, with sharp eyes that catalogued me in seconds. He took my bags without comment and opened the door. I slid in, and this time, I wasn't alone in the back seat. Dante sat in the corner, dressed in charcoal gray today, looking like he hadn't slept, but somehow making exhaustion look elegant. A laptop was open on his knee, and he was speaking rapid Italian into a phone. His voice clipped and dangerous. I caught every word. Something about a shipment, a port. Someone who'd made a mistake that would be corrected permanently. He ended the call and turned those black eyes on me. "You understood that. Not a question. A test." "Yes." And it's none of my business." I kept my voice level. "You said discretion was required." "I'm discreet." Something like approval flickered across his face. "Good. We're not going to the property yet. First, we handle practicalities." He closed the laptop and gave me his full attention, and the weight of it was suffocating. "You'll need proper identification, a new phone, a bank account in your name with appropriate funds, and clothes." "I have clothes." His gaze traveled over my worn jeans and faded jacket. No, you have rags. You represent me now. That requires a certain presentation. The casual dismissal of my possessions stung, but I couldn't argue. He was right. The car took us to a part of the city I'd never seen. The financial district, all steel and glass and money. We stopped at a private bank, the kind without signs or advertised hours. Dante escorted me inside, his hand at the small of my back, a touch that felt like ownership. Everyone knew him. The staff practically bowed. We were ushered into a private office where a banker in a suit that probably cost more than a car waited with papers already prepared. "Miss Volkov will be opening an account," Dante said, settling into a chair like he owned the building. Probably did. Set up with full access, international capabilities, and appropriate security measures. "Of course, Mr. Caruso." The banker, a woman in her 50s with silver hair and calculating eyes, smiled at me. "Miss Volkov, I'll need some identification and signatures." I pulled out my battered driver's license, embarrassed by the photo, by the expired date, by everything it represented. The banker didn't even blink. "We'll issue you a new debit and credit card. Mr. Caruso has already authorized an initial deposit. How much?" I asked. Dante answered before she could. 50,000. Your signing bonus. Your weekly salary will be deposited every Friday. $50,000. I'd never seen that much money in my life. The number didn't feel real. "That's too much," I whispered. "That's what you're worth." His tone left no room for argument. "Sign the papers, Elena." I did, my hand shaking. With each signature, I felt myself being drawn deeper into his world. Golden chains wrapping around me with my own consent. Next came a phone. Sleek, expensive, already programmed with numbers I'd need. Dante's was first. Of course. "You'll answer when I call," he said, handing it to me, day or night, immediately. "And if I'm asleep?" "Then you wake up." He leaned closer, his voice dropping. "You're mine now, Elena. That means I own your time, your skills, and your availability. Fight me on this and we'll have problems. Obey, and you'll find me quite generous." The word obey should have made me rebel. Instead, it sent a shiver down my spine that had nothing to do with fear. "Understood," I managed. "Good girl." The praise hit me harder than it should have. I looked away, hating the warmth that flooded through me. By the time we left the bank, it was nearly noon. The driver took us to a district I'd only ever window shopped in, boutiques with no price tags, stores where you needed an appointment just to browse. Dante led me into one, and immediately staff swarmed. He spoke to them in rapid Italian. I caught words like professional, elegant, and spare no expense. Then he turned to me. "I have business to attend to. They'll take care of you. Buy whatever you need. Clothes, shoes, accessories, everything. Don't worry about cost. I can't just..." "You can. You will." He checked his watch, a platinum piece that caught the light. "I'll collect you in 2 hours. Be ready." Then he was gone, and I was left with 3 women who looked at me like a project. They were efficient and surprisingly kind, never commenting on my discount store underwear or the fact that I flinched at every price tag. They measured me, assessed my coloring, and brought out clothes I'd only ever seen in magazines. "Mr. Caruso has specific tastes," one of them said, an elegant woman named Sophia. "Classic, sophisticated, nothing too flashy. You'll need business attire mostly, but also casual pieces, and at least 2 evening gowns." "Evening gowns?" "You'll accompany him to events occasionally. Image matters in his world, which was now my world." I tried on what felt like hundreds of outfits. Tailored trousers, silk blouses, pencil skirts, cashmere sweaters, dresses in jewel tones that made my skin glow, heels that actually fit. When I looked in the mirror, I saw someone else, someone polished, professional, powerful, someone who could stand beside Dante Caruso and not look out of place. "Beautiful," Sophia said approvingly. "He'll be pleased." That shouldn't have mattered, but it did. By the time Dante returned, I had a wardrobe that would have taken me 10 years to afford. He walked in, surveyed the bags and boxes, then turned to me. I was wearing one of the new outfits, a cream silk blouse and black trousers that fit perfectly, paired with heels that made me 3 inches taller. His eyes darkened as they traveled over me, slow and assessing. "Perfect," he said quietly. "Exactly as I imagined. You imagined how I'd look? From the moment I saw you in that diner." He moved closer, adjusting the collar of my blouse with casual intimacy. I saw past the exhaustion and the rags. I saw this. What you were always meant to be. His touch burned. I stepped back, needing distance. "What happens now?" "Now, you see where you'll be living." The property was a brownstone in a neighborhood where security cameras watched every corner and police cars never patrolled because private security handled everything. Dante used a key card to open the gate, and we walked up to a building that radiated quiet wealth. "Top floor is mine," he said, leading me inside. "You'll have the 3rd floor. Self-contained apartment, 2 bedrooms, full kitchen, living space. The 2nd floor is offices and a gym. Ground floor is secured entry only." We took an elevator that required both a key card and a fingerprint. The whole building hummed with expensive silence. Thick walls, soundproofing, the kind of security that cost more than most people's houses. My apartment was beautiful. Hardwood floors, high ceilings, windows that overlooked a private garden. The furniture was modern but comfortable, and everything was in shades of cream and gray. Neutral, elegant, anonymous. "You can redecorate however you like," Dante said, watching me explore. "But this should serve for now. Your clothes will be delivered within the hour. I've stocked the kitchen with basics, but there's a meal service available if you prefer." I turned to face him, overwhelmed. "Why are you doing all this? I told you. You're valuable to me." "No." I shook my head. "This is more than just employment. The clothes, the apartment, the money. This is..." "What?" He moved closer, crowding me against the window. "Excessive? Controlling? A golden cage?" "Yes, good. You're starting to understand." His hand came up to cup my jaw, tilting my face toward his. "I don't do anything by half measures, Elena. When I want something, I take it completely, and I want you, your skills, your loyalty, your presence. So I'll give you everything you need to thrive, and in return, you'll give me what I require. And if I can't, you will." His thumb brushed my lower lip, and my breath caught. "Because you were made for this. For me. You just don't know it yet." He was so close I could feel his body heat, smell his cologne mixed with something darker. Danger and desire and inevitability. My heart hammered against my ribs. Fear and something else tangling together. "I'm not afraid of you," I whispered. "You should be." But he smiled as he said it, stepping back and breaking the spell. "Rest today. Tomorrow we start work, 7 a.m. Don't be late." He left, and I stood there trembling, my new phone heavy in my pocket, and his touch still burning on my skin. I explored the apartment in a daze. The bedroom had a king-size bed with sheets that felt like silk. The bathroom had a tub big enough to drown in, and products I'd only ever stolen glances at in stores. The kitchen had a refrigerator full of fresh food, a wine rack stocked with bottles that probably cost hundreds. This was my life now. This luxury. This prison. This promise of something I couldn't quite name. I took a bath that night, sinking into hot water for the first time in years, and cried. Not from sadness exactly, but from the overwhelming strangeness of it all. Yesterday I'd been invisible, drowning slowly in poverty and exhaustion. Today I had $50,000 in a bank account and an apartment nicer than anything I'd dreamed of. And I belonged to a man who looked at me like I was simultaneously prey and treasure. My new phone buzzed. A text from Dante. "Sleep well. Tomorrow changes everything." I stared at the message for a long time, then typed back, "I'm already changed." His response was immediate. "Not yet, but you will be." I fell asleep in sheets that smelled of lavender, in a bed that didn't creak, in a silence so profound it felt like the world had stopped existing beyond these walls. And I dreamed of black eyes and promises that tasted like surrender. The next morning, I woke to sunlight streaming through windows I'd forgotten to curtain. For a moment, I didn't remember where I was. Then reality crashed back. The apartment, the job, Dante. I dressed carefully in one of my new outfits. A navy dress that hit just above the knee, paired with heels that were somehow both elegant and practical. I studied myself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman looking back. Professional, polished, powerful, his. At exactly 7 a.m., there was a knock on my door. I opened it to find Dimitri, the tree trunk security guard from the diner, waiting with an impassive expression. "Mr. Caruso is ready for you," he said in heavily accented English. "Fourth floor, conference room." I followed him up another flight of stairs. The elevator apparently wasn't for staff use, and entered a space that looked like something from a corporate thriller. Glass walls, a massive table, screens on every surface, and at the head of it all, Dante. He looked up as I entered, and something predatory flashed in his eyes. Punctual, good. He gestured to the chair beside his, not across from him, beside him. "Sit. We have a call in 5 minutes with associates in Moscow. You'll translate." Just like that? No preparation? "You speak Russian fluently. What preparation do you need?" He slid a folder toward me. Basic briefing. Names, positions, topics to be discussed. Read quickly. I scanned the documents, my heart racing. This wasn't theoretical anymore. This was real work, real consequences. The call connected, and faces appeared on the screen. Hard men with harder eyes, speaking rapid Russian about shipments and territories and problems that needed handling. And I translated. Every word, every nuance, every threat carefully coded in business language. Dante listened, occasionally asking questions in English that I converted, his hand resting casually on the table near mine, close enough to remind me of his presence, never quite touching. The meeting lasted 2 hours. When it ended, Dante leaned back and studied me. "You did well." "Thank you." "Don't thank me. You earned your salary today, but we're not done." He stood, buttoning his jacket. "We have another meeting in an hour, this one in person. Italian associates. They're difficult." "How difficult?" His smile was knife-sharp, the kind of difficult where one wrong word could start a war. "Try not to make mistakes, Elena. The consequences would be unfortunate." "For them, or for me?" I didn't ask. The meeting happened in a restaurant even more exclusive than Vincenzo's, in a private room that felt like a throne room. 6 men, all dressed in expensive suits, all radiating violence barely contained by civilized veneer. And Dante, at the head of the table, looking like a king among wolves. I sat beside him, my tablet ready, my heart in my throat. The conversation started cordially enough but quickly descended into veiled threats and power plays. I translated mechanically, keeping my face neutral, even as the words painted pictures of brutality that made my stomach turn. Halfway through, one of the men, a silver-haired man with a scar bisecting his eyebrow, turned to me. "You're very beautiful," he said in Italian. Where did Dante find such a treasure? I opened my mouth to respond, but Dante's hand landed on my thigh under the table, a warning, a claim. "Miss Volkov is my employee," Dante said, his voice casual but edged with steel. "And therefore under my protection. I trust you'll remember that, Salvatore." The threat was clear. Touch her, even with words, and die. Salvatore smiled, but his eyes went cold. "Of course, forgive me." The meeting ended shortly after, and as we left, Dante's hand never left the small of my back. Possessive, protective, terrifying. In the car, he finally spoke. "You handled that well." "He was testing you," I said, "through me." "Yes." He looked at me with something like approval. "And you understood that. Smart. They'll try again. They always do. But they know now. You're mine, and I protect what's mine. Even if I'm just an employee." His smile was dark. "Elena, we both know you stopped being just an employee the moment I saw you. The question is, when you'll admit it." 3 weeks passed in a blur of meetings, translations, and the slow erosion of the line between employee and something far more dangerous. I learned the rhythms of Dante's world. Early mornings, late nights, and the constant undercurrent of violence masked by business terminology. I translated conversations about shipments that were clearly weapons, investments that were money laundering, personnel issues that meant someone had betrayed him and would disappear. And through it all, Dante watched me. Not with suspicion, but with something worse, fascination laced with possession. He was everywhere. In the office adjacent to mine, his presence a constant weight. At dinner meetings where his hand would find my waist, guiding me, claiming me in front of men who looked at me like they wanted to devour me whole. In my thoughts, even when I was alone in my apartment, trying to convince myself I was still my own person. But the truth was becoming undeniable. I wasn't. I'd started dressing the way he preferred without being told. Elegant, sophisticated, professional. I answered his calls before the second ring. I anticipated his needs in meetings, having documents ready before he asked, knowing which language would serve best in each situation. I was becoming exactly what he wanted me to be. And the most terrifying part? I didn't hate it. The money was real. Weekly deposits that accumulated into wealth I'd never imagined. The safety was real too. No more walking home through dangerous streets. No more wondering if I'd have enough for rent. I lived in luxury, ate at restaurants where meals cost more than I used to make in a week, wore clothes that made me feel like someone worth looking at. But the cost was becoming equally real. "You're thinking too much," Dante said one evening. We were in his office, his real office, on the 4th floor, all dark wood and leather, and the scent of expensive scotch. He'd called me up after a particularly tense call with associates in Naples, needing me to review documents in Italian. "I'm reading the contracts you asked me to review," I said, not looking up from the papers. "No." He rose from behind his desk and moved toward me with that predatory grace. "You're thinking about running." My head snapped up. "I'm not." "Don't lie to me, Elena." He perched on the edge of his desk, too close, always too close. "You're calculating how much money you've saved, whether it's enough to disappear, where you could go that I wouldn't find you." The accuracy made my blood run cold. And if I was, I'd be disappointed. His hand reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear, the gesture almost tender. "After everything I've given you, after how well we work together, you'd really throw that away? You can't own people, Dante, can't I?" His smile was dark. "Look around, Elena. Look at your life now versus 3 weeks ago. I didn't just give you a job, I gave you a purpose, an identity. You're not invisible anymore. You're powerful, respected, feared by association. Tell me that doesn't feel better than that diner." "It did. God help me, it did." "That doesn't make me yours," I whispered. "No." His hand moved to cup my jaw, tilting my face up. "What makes you mine is that you haven't run yet. Despite knowing what I am, despite seeing the darkness, you're still here, translating my sins, making yourself indispensable. Why is that, Elena?" I couldn't answer, didn't want to examine the truth too closely. His thumb brushed my lower lip, and my breath caught. "You want to belong to something," he said softly. "To someone. You've been alone your whole life, fighting to survive, and you're so tired. I'm offering you rest, safety. All you have to do is stop fighting what we both know is inevitable." "And what's that?" My voice was barely audible. "That you're mine, completely, in every way that matters." He leaned closer, his breath warm against my skin. "I could take you right now, kiss you, claim you, and you wouldn't stop me, would you?" My heart hammered so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. "That's not—" "Answer me, Elena." I couldn't. Because he was right, and we both knew it. His phone buzzed, breaking the moment. He glanced at it, and something dangerous flashed across his face. "We have a problem." "What kind of problem?" "The kind that requires immediate attention." He stood, straightening his jacket. "Get your coat. You're coming with me." "Where?" "To handle a betrayal." The warehouse was in a part of the city I'd never seen, all crumbling concrete and rusted metal. Dante's SUV pulled up to a loading dock where 2 more vehicles waited, surrounded by men with weapons they didn't bother hiding. "Stay in the car," Dante ordered, but his hand caught mine before I could respond. "And Elena?" No matter what you hear, don't come inside. Understood? The fear in his eyes, not for himself, but for me, made me nod. He disappeared into the warehouse with Dmitri and 3 other guards. I sat in the back seat, my heart racing, the driver in front silent and unmoving. Then the screaming started, male voices, raised in terror and pain, the sharp crack of gunfire, shouting in Italian, accusations, pleas, the sounds of violence I couldn't see but could imagine in horrifying detail. I pressed my hands over my ears, but it didn't help. The sounds seeped through, painting pictures of exactly what Dante Caruso was capable of when someone crossed him. 20 minutes later, a lifetime, he emerged. His white shirt was splattered with blood, his knuckles split and raw, but his expression was calm, almost serene. He slid into the back seat beside me, and I flinched. Don't, he said quietly. Don't look at me like that. Like what? Like you're afraid of me. I've never lied to you about what I am, Elena. You've always known. Knowing and seeing are different things. Then see. He held up his bloodied hands. This is what I do. This is the world you've entered. Men betrayed me. They sold information to rivals, put my people at risk. So I eliminated the problem. Would you prefer I let it go? Let them think weakness? I would prefer you didn't kill people. Then you're in the wrong life. His voice hardened. I offered you an out. Multiple times. You chose to stay. You chose this. He was right. And I hated him for it. The driver took us back to the brownstone in silence. Dante disappeared into his apartment without another word, leaving me shaking in the elevator. I should have packed that night. Should have taken the money I'd saved and run as far as I could. Instead, I found myself standing outside his door at midnight, my hand raised to knock. The door opened before I could. Dante stood there in black pants and nothing else, his torso a canvas of scars and ink I'd never seen before. Fresh bruises bloomed across his ribs. Elena. His voice was rough. Go back to your apartment. No. I'm not good company right now. I don't care. And I didn't. I couldn't explain what drove me here, only that being alone felt impossible. What happened in that warehouse was necessary. He turned away, leaving the door open. An invitation or a test. I followed. His apartment was all dark colors and leather, masculine and sparse. He poured himself scotch and drank it in one swallow, his back to me, tension radiating from every line of his body. You should be afraid of me, he said finally. After what you heard, after seeing the blood, I am afraid of you. He turned, and the rawness in his expression stole my breath. Then why are you here? Because I'm more afraid of myself. The truth spilled out. Because I should be horrified, should be running. But instead I'm here, because you were right. I haven't felt this alive in years. And I hate that it takes darkness to make me feel real. He crossed the distance between us in 3 strides, his hands framing my face, his eyes searching mine. Elena, don't. I pressed my fingers to his lips. Don't make me any more promises. Don't tell me what I am or who I belong to. Just what? Make me forget. Just for tonight. His control snapped. His mouth crashed against mine. And it wasn't gentle. It was possession and desperation and 3 weeks of tension exploding into something that felt like falling and flying simultaneously. I kissed him back with equal fervor. My hands in his hair, against his bare chest, memorizing the feel of scars and heat and danger. His hands roamed my body, claiming every inch, and when he lifted me, I wrapped my legs around his waist without thought. He carried me to his bedroom, laying me on sheets that smelled like him. Cedar and smoke and sin. His hands made quick work of my clothes, and for once, I didn't think about vulnerability or power dynamics or consequences. I just felt. His mouth on my skin, hot and demanding, his hands, surprisingly gentle despite the violence they'd committed hours ago. The weight of him above me, around me, everywhere, mine. He growled against my throat. Say it. Yours, I gasped, and the admission was surrender and liberation simultaneously. We moved together like we'd been designed for this, bodies learning rhythms that felt ancient and inevitable. When I shattered, he swallowed my cries with kisses that tasted like claiming. When he followed, my name on his lips sounded like prayer and possession. Afterward, tangled in sheets with his arms around me, I felt the reality of what I'd done settle like lead in my stomach. "Regrets already?" he murmured against my hair. "Should I have them?" "Probably." His arms tightened. "I told you I collect things, Elena. But you're not just collected. You're consumed. There's no going back from this." "I know." "And you're staying anyway?" I turned in his arms, meeting those black eyes that had haunted me since the diner. "I don't think I ever had a choice." "You always had a choice." His hand cupped my face with surprising tenderness. "But I'm glad you chose me." We didn't sleep much that night, and when dawn came, painting his bedroom in shades of gold and gray, I knew everything had changed irrevocably. I belonged to Dante Caruso. Completely. And the terrifying part was that I no longer wanted to escape. The next 2 weeks passed in a fever dream. I moved between his bed and his business seamlessly, translator by day and lover by night. He was insatiable. For my body, yes, but also for my presence, my thoughts, my absolute attention. The men in his organization noticed the change. I saw it in their eyes, the way they deferred to me now, the way even Salvatore, the silver-haired man who'd tested Dante, treated me with wary respect. I was no longer just an employee. I was the boss's woman, protected, elevated, and more trapped than ever. But one afternoon, everything I'd built came crashing down. I was in my apartment reviewing documents when my phone rang, unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me. "Elena Volkov?" A male voice, American accent, official. "Yes, this is Agent Marcus Webb with the FBI. We need to talk about Dante Caruso." My blood turned to ice. "I don't know what you're—" "Save it. We know you work for him. We know about the translations, the meetings, all of it. And we know you're sleeping with him." The agent's voice was matter-of-fact. "Which means you're now complicit in multiple federal crimes. Unless you help us." "I won't." "You'll serve 20 years minimum as an accessory. Is that what you want? Or would you prefer immunity, witness protection, and a chance to actually live?" My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped the phone. "What do you want?" "Information, testimony. Help us build a case that'll actually stick." He paused. "We can protect you, Miss Volkov. But you need to decide now. Are you with us or with him?" I looked around my beautiful apartment, thought of Dante upstairs, of the life I'd built in 5 weeks, and realized I had no idea who I was anymore. "I need time," I whispered. "You have 24 hours. Then we're coming for both of you." He gave me a number. "Call me, Elena. Save yourself while you still can." The line went dead. I sat there, phone in hand, my whole world collapsing around me. Because I knew the truth. No matter what I chose, I'd already lost everything. I didn't call the FBI, not that night, not the next morning. Instead, I did something far more dangerous. I pretended everything was normal. Dante noticed immediately. "You're distant," he said over breakfast in his apartment. We'd fallen into this routine, mornings together before the day's darkness began. But today, the coffee tasted like ash in my mouth. "I'm fine. Don't lie to me." His hand covered mine on the table, warm and possessive. "What happened?" I almost told him. Almost laid it all out. The FBI, the threats, the impossible choice. But fear stopped me. Fear of his reaction, of what he'd do, of what it meant that I was even considering protecting him. "Nothing happened. I'm just tired." He studied me with those black eyes that saw too much. "If someone threatened you, no one threatened me. Elena." He stood, pulling me up with him. "I can protect you from anything, but only if you tell me the truth. Has someone approached you? Said something?" The concern in his voice nearly broke me. This monster who'd killed men without hesitation, who'd built an empire on violence and fear, was genuinely worried about me. "I'm fine," I repeated, and kissed him before he could question further. But I wasn't fine. I was fracturing. The 24 hours ticked away like a countdown to execution. I went through the motions, translating calls, attending meetings, sleeping in Dante's bed while my mind raced through scenarios, each worse than the last. If I helped the FBI, Dante would be arrested, possibly killed in the process. And I'd lose everything. Him, this life, the belonging I'd finally found. If I didn't help them, I'd be arrested too. Complicit in crimes I'd witnessed, translated, enabled. There was no good choice, only different flavors of destruction. With 2 hours left on the deadline, I made my decision. I found Dante in his office, surrounded by paperwork and the ever-present guards. I need to talk to you, alone. Something in my voice made him dismiss everyone immediately. When the door closed, leaving just us, he moved around the desk toward me. What is it? The FBI contacted me yesterday. The words tumbled out before I could stop them. They want me to inform on you. Testify. They said I have 24 hours to decide or they'll arrest both of us. The silence that followed was deafening. Dante's expression didn't change, but something dark and terrible flickered in his eyes. And what did you tell them? That I needed time to decide whether to betray me. His voice was carefully neutral, which was somehow more terrifying than rage would have been. No. I stepped closer, desperate for him to understand, to decide how to tell you, to figure out what to do. Dante, I never... When? He cut me off. When did they contact you? Yesterday afternoon. And you're telling me now, with 2 hours left. He laughed, a sound devoid of humor. Were you planning to run? To disappear with their immunity deal and leave me to burn? No, I was trying to figure out... Figure out what? His control cracked, voice rising. Whether I was worth protecting, whether you felt enough for me to risk your freedom? I'm here, aren't I shouted back. I could have called them, could have agreed to wear a wire, to testify, to take their deal and vanish, but I'm here, telling you. Risking everything because why, Elena? He crowded me against the wall, his hands braced on either side of my head, caging me in. Because you love me? Because you're loyal? Or because you're smart enough to know I'd find you wherever you ran? The question hung between us, heavy with implications. All of it, I whispered. Because somewhere in these 5 weeks, I stopped being able to imagine existing without you. Because when I think about testifying against you, I feel sick. Because I'm in love with you, and I hate myself for it, but it's true. His eyes widened fractionally. Whatever he'd expected me to say, it wasn't that. You love me, he repeated, his voice rough. Yes. God help me. Yes. He kissed me then, hard and desperate and almost violent. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against mine. You fool. You beautiful, stupid fool. I know, I'm going to have to disappear for a while, maybe permanently. The FBI doesn't make threats lightly. His hands moved to my shoulders, gripping almost painfully. You have 2 options. Come with me. Leave everything, everyone, live in hiding as long as necessary. Or take their deal. Immunity, protection, freedom. That's not freedom. It's more than you'll have with me. His voice softened. Elena, I'm offering you an out. One last chance. Take it. Save yourself. No. Elena? No, I repeated more firmly. I'm not leaving you. I'm not testifying. Whatever happens, we face it together. Something like pain crossed his face. You don't know what you're saying. Life on the run is better than life without you. I pulled him closer, my hands fisting in his shirt. I chose you. Weeks ago, probably. I chose danger over safety, darkness over light. I chose you, Dante, and I'm not taking it back now. He kissed me again, slower this time, like he was memorizing the taste of me. Then we run. Tonight. I have arrangements, safe houses, new identities, money they can't trace. We'll disappear. What about your organization? My brother will take over. He's been ready for years. Dante's hands cupped my face. I've been preparing for this possibility since I took control. The FBI thinks they're clever, but I've always been 3 steps ahead. The question was never whether I could escape. It was whether I'd have a reason to. And now you do? You're the only reason that matters. His thumb brushed my cheekbone. I love you, Elena. I've loved you since I saw you in that diner, drowning in a life too small for your brilliance. You're mine, yes, but I'm also yours, completely. Tears I'd been fighting spilled over. This is insane. Yes. He smiled, and it was real. Warm, almost boyish. But you wouldn't have it any other way. He was right. Again. The next few hours passed in controlled chaos. Dante made calls in rapid Italian and Russian, setting mechanisms in motion that had clearly been planned long ago. Money transferred to accounts I'd never heard of. Documents prepared. Transportation arranged. I packed what little I couldn't leave behind. My mother's necklace. The few books I treasured. The clothes Dante had bought me. Everything else was abandoned. At midnight, we left. Not in the Mercedes or the SUV, but in a nondescript sedan driven by someone I'd never seen. Dante sat beside me, his hand never leaving mine, as we drove away from the city that had been both my prison and my salvation. "Where are we going?" I asked as city lights faded behind us. "A small town in Portugal first. Then we'll see. Depends on how hard they look for us." He kissed my knuckles. "I own a villa there. Nothing registered under my name. Purchased years ago through intermediaries. We'll be safe. And then we live. As quietly as people like us can." His eyes held mine. "No more empire. No more meetings with men who want me dead. Just us, Elena. Just this." It sounded like a dream, or a lie. But looking at him, at the man who'd upended my entire existence and made me choose love over freedom, I knew it was the only truth that mattered. We flew out on a private charter. No questions asked. No records kept. Dante had changed clothes, casual now. Jeans and a black sweater, looking more like a wealthy tourist than a Mafia boss. I'd done the same. And together we looked like any couple escaping for a European adventure. Except for the gun I knew he carried, and the weight of everything we'd left behind. Portugal was beautiful, rolling hills, ancient architecture, the Atlantic stretching endless and blue. The villa was isolated, perched on a cliff overlooking the ocean, surrounded by olive trees and bougainvillea. It was paradise, and for the first few weeks, I almost believed we could make it work. We learned a new rhythm. Mornings on the terrace, coffee and conversation in Portuguese, which I taught Dante properly. Afternoons exploring small villages where no one knew us, where we were just another couple in love. Evenings tangled together, making love with an urgency born from knowing how easily this could all disappear. Dante was different here, lighter. He laughed more, the hard edges softening in the Mediterranean sun. We cooked together, walked the beaches, made love under stars so bright they felt close enough to touch, happy. He asked one evening, as we sat watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of fire. Terrifyingly so, he pulled me closer. "I know what you gave up for me, your freedom, your safety, any chance at a normal life. I gave up a life I never wanted for one I chose." I turned to face him. "No regrets, Dante. Not one. Not even when you're old and still looking over your shoulder. Not even then." He kissed me, and it tasted like forever. But forever came with complications. 3 months into our new life, I realized I was late. Then I was sick. Then I took a test in our villa's bathroom while Dante was on a supply run into town. Positive. I stood there, test in hand, my entire world shifting on its axis again. A baby. Dante's baby. The child of a mafia boss and a woman who'd chosen exile over betrayal. When he came home, I was sitting on the terrace, the test hidden in my pocket, trying to figure out how to tell him. "Elena?" He dropped the bags, immediately alert. "What's wrong?" "I'm pregnant." The words hung in the air like a dropped bomb. Dante stood frozen, his expression cycling through shock, fear, and then something that looked like wonder. "You're certain?" "Yes." He crossed to me in 3 strides, dropping to his knees in front of my chair, his hands covering my still flat stomach. "A baby. Our baby." "Are you—" I couldn't finish the question. "Happy? Angry? Terrified?" "I'm everything," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Terrified because I've brought a child into this life. Ecstatic because it's our child. Determined because now I have even more reason to keep you both safe." He looked up at me, and his eyes were wet. "Elena, I know." I threaded my fingers through his hair. "I'm scared too. But we'll figure it out. Together." He kissed my stomach, then my lips, then held me like I was the most precious thing in existence. The pregnancy changed everything and nothing. We stayed in Portugal, but Dante became even more paranoid about security. He hired guards, trusted men from his old organization who'd followed him into exile. We moved to a different property, more secure, more isolated. But we also built something real, a nursery painted in soft yellows and greens, baby clothes and books in 9 languages, plans for a future that felt increasingly possible. I grew round with our child, and Dante grew softer, his hands constantly on my belly, talking to our daughter. We found out at 5 months, in Italian and English and Russian. "She'll be brilliant like you," he said one night, his hand feeling our daughter kick. "Beautiful like you, strong like you, and ruthless like you," I teased. "God, I hope not." But he smiled. "I hope she gets the best of both of us and none of the darkness." "That's not how genetics work. Let me dream, Elena." Our daughter was born on a spring morning, 6 months after we'd fled. The birth was difficult, complications that required a hospital, risks that made Dante pace like a caged animal. But when it was over, when I held our screaming, perfect daughter, I saw tears on his face for the first time. "She's beautiful," he whispered, touching her tiny hand. "She's perfect. You're perfect." We named her Natasha, after my mother. Natasha Elena Caruso, born into exile but surrounded by more love than I'd ever imagined possible. Life settled into a new normal. Sleepless nights and dirty diapers and the overwhelming responsibility of keeping this tiny human alive. But also joy. So much joy it felt impossible that it came from such darkness. Dante was an attentive father, devoted and gentle and constantly amazed by our daughter. He sang to her in Italian, taught her Russian lullabies I'd taught him, held her for hours while I slept. We were a family, broken and strange and born from violence, but a family nonetheless. One evening, when Natasha was 6 months old and sleeping peacefully in her crib, Dante found me on the terrace watching the stars. "Thinking about what we left behind?" he asked, wrapping his arms around me from behind. "Sometimes. But mostly I'm thinking about what we have now." "Regrets?" "Never." I turned in his arms. "You offered me everything once, money, protection, power. But what you really gave me was this: purpose, belonging, love, a family. I gave you a life on the run. You gave me a life worth living." I kissed him softly. "I was drowning in that diner, Dante. Invisible and dying slowly. You saw me. You chose me. And yes, the cost was high. But I'd pay it again in a heartbeat, even knowing where we'd end up, especially knowing where we'd end up." He held me tighter, and we stood there under Portuguese stars, 2 fugitives who'd built something beautiful from ashes and crime and impossible choices. The FBI never found us, or maybe they stopped looking. Either way, we were ghosts. Elena and Dante Caruso, the waitress who spoke 9 languages, and the Mafia boss who loved her enough to give up everything. Years passed. Natasha grew into a brilliant, bilingual toddler who could switch between languages mid-sentence and had her father's eyes and her mother's mind. We stayed in Portugal, then moved to a small island off Greece, then to a village in the Italian countryside where no one asked questions and everyone minded their business. We lived quietly. Dante invested legitimately now. Real estate, technology, ventures that couldn't be traced back to his old life. I translated for international clients remotely, using skills that had once served criminals to serve legitimate businesses. We were happy. Impossibly, inexplicably happy. On our 5th anniversary of fleeing, celebrated quietly in our villa overlooking olive groves, Dante gave me a gift. A small velvet box. Inside was a ring. Simple, elegant, a single diamond that caught the light. "I never asked properly," he said, taking my hand. "We ran, we survived, we built this life. But I never asked if you'd marry me, legally, officially, forever." "We can't," I said practically. "Marriage records, legal documents. I have people who can handle that, new identities, foolproof documentation." He smiled. "I want you to be my wife, Elena, not just in practice, but in name. Will you marry me?" I looked at this man who destroyed my old life and built me a new one, who'd killed without hesitation, but held our daughter like she was made of glass, who'd given up power and empire for love. Yes, I whispered. 1,000 times yes. We married in a small chapel in Tuscany, with Natasha as our only witness and a priest who asked no questions. I wore white. Dante wore black. And when he kissed me as his wife, it felt like the end of one story and the beginning of another. That night, lying in bed with my husband beside me and our daughter sleeping peacefully down the hall, I thought about the FBI agent's question from years ago. Are you with us or with him? I'd chosen him, and in choosing him, I'd chosen myself, the woman I was always meant to be. Not invisible, not drowning, not surviving, living, truly living. What are you thinking? Dante murmured, pulling me closer. That I'd do it all again. The running, the hiding, everything. Every impossible choice, every dangerous moment, all of it, if it meant ending up here with you. He kissed my forehead, and I felt him smile against my skin. My Elena. My impossible, brilliant, beautiful Elena. I love you. I love you too. And there, in a villa in Tuscany with a new name, and an old love, and a daughter who represented hope for a future we'd stolen from fate, I finally found what I'd been searching for all along. Not freedom, not safety, not even happiness. I found home. In the arms of a dangerous man who'd seen past my invisibility to the fire underneath. Who'd collected me like art, and then let me reshape him into something better. We were monsters, maybe, fugitives, definitely, but we were also proof that even from the darkest choices, the most impossible love stories, something beautiful could grow. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything.